Hello, this is Adore from BricsMaven, and in this video we're going to look at spacing and contextual spacing tokens. So what are spacing tokens and contextual spacing tokens? Well, let's dive in, let's find out. So I will select these cards, and if we look at the right panel on the auto layout panel, you can see that these cards have been tagged with tokens. This is the content gap token, and here are the spacing tokens, which you see right here. So the content gap token is actually a contextual variable, meaning that this is specifically for your gaps in your content. Why do we need a contextual variable? Is to have control over our content all over our project, because you could use a spacing, spacing variable here, but why would you not opt for these spacing variables? Let's say I want to change the spacing between the elements over my whole project. I would have to go to every single container or card and make those changes, right? So if this was, for example, if this were all set to space M, right? So this is space M. Wait, let me show you this way. Content gap has the value of 24, right? So this will be the correct way of doing this. But for this example, we use space M, which also has a value of 24. You would say, okay, no problem. So let's say somewhere in the future, you want to change the spacing between your elements in your containers, in your sections, or in your cards. You want to make it a little bit larger. So what do you have to do? Well, you have to go to every card and update this to spacing 32. And now you could say, okay, well, I have made this change to my card. It's good, right? There's nothing wrong. Well, you're right, but there's another problem here. I could have just wanted to tweak the value of the space M. So in this case, it says space M, right? Space M. Let's say I want to change the value of space M. I would have a problem. And the problem I would have is I would need to go to every place where this card is and change. Oh wait, sorry, my example is not going to make sense. Let me repeat it again. Let's say indeed I want to change this to space L because I want it to be a little bit larger. Well, you would have to go to every card and change it. Not only here. Okay, now I could easily select this, but I need to go to all other cards and make that change, which is a lot of work, right? But if you just had the content gap on it, and you could say, okay, I want this to be larger. All I just need to do is the following. I just need to go to my local variables, go to content gap, and then change the space M token to L. I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to. Well, let me just do it quick. Let's do it real quick. So I change this to L, and let's wait for it to process it. It all just takes a while because it has to go through all the blocks. I think this is really gonna take long. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to do it, because it just takes super long. Let's see if it has already processed it. Okay, it seems it's already changed it. You see? So it now I made it larger without having to go to every individual card. And that's the power of the contextual variables. And you always have to do this beforehand, obviously, because if you do this later, then there's no need, there'll be no benefit, right? So making sure that your containers, your cards have a content gap, or your containers have a container gap will really benefit your project, will give you much more spacing over your contents. You can change this to any spacing token that you want. Let me just put it back to M. Okay, to take a while. We don't need to wait for it to change. Oh, change real quick. Now, cool. So that is actually the difference between the spacing variable and the contextual spacing variable. Keep in mind, the content gap, container gap, and the grid gap are all contextual variables. Let me show them here. So these three here, these are all contextual variables. Content is used for, it says in its name, content. So the content in a card, you can use the content gap to separate the spaces. It might be a row, it can be a column. You use content gap for that. Container gap is for your container. So this is a container, and as you can see, let me select the container. It's okay. I've not tagged this one. Let me container gap. These are used for your containers. And last but not least, the grid gap is used for your grids. Like this is a 3-column grid, and as you can see, it has a grid gap. And that is how we ensure that our content, our grids, our containers have the same spacing, and it will give your design a consistent, uniform look, and to look more professional, and it also give you a lot of control. Yeah, and that is when it comes to spacing, contextual spacing, that is what you need to know, and that is what you all need to know how to use it. One more thing, or maybe two more things. Let me select all the cards again. The left field here is for your horizontal padding, and the right field is for your vertical padding. So this is for your left and right padding, and this is for your top and bottom padding. You might also want to give your top and your bottom, or your right and left, a different value. Then you click on this icon, individual padding. It will separate them. So this is left, and the icon you can see left padding, right padding, bottom padding, top padding, and then you can give them different values. You can make this smaller, or you could even make this larger or smaller. And you can also collapse them, and then you see the values like this, or you just choose to give them the same value. So that is how you use your spacing variables. This here is where you use your contextual variables. Here is where you make the changes, spacing changes, section space. Oh, one more thing, I didn't show the section spacing. So on your tokens, click on the section, and this on the horizontal padding, you need to, if you want to quickly search for it, just type in padding, and you get your section padding. Section padding is explicit for the left and right padding. So I usually set this to 64, and on the right side, just write section, and you get the section space, which is for the top and the bottom padding, which I set to 128. So now we have our paddings set on our section. So there's one more thing I want to show you, and that is how to add your own. And we already added in a previous video an extra variable. I'll remove this one, and I'll just add it again. So we just add space 5XL, and then you just give it your own value, 164 for mobile. You could also give it a value, maybe 140, and it's added. And the same thing you can do for section space, padding, content gap, container gap, grid gap. And on the content gap is just the normal value. Content gap D2 is actually divided by 2. Content gap T2 is times 2. Same for your container. And for your grid gap, I have times 2. You can times 3, it can be times 4, or divided. You have divided by 3. You know, depends on the spacing you need. So that is how we fill this in, and that I'm just giving you the understanding behind it so you understand how it works. You can you can go further, 5XS or 5S6XL, depending on how far you want to go. That's how you add the variables. And that was it for this section. I hope you learned a lot. I'll see you on the next video. And I thank you for watching. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and I will get back to you as soon as possible. For now, have a nice day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.